We in there.
Questions I thought to ask myself was like, who am I? Like, who does God say I am?
In that season of my life, I was a hot mess. Drinking a lot and clubbing a lot and
in God's perspective. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I'm not here to please you. I can't be this for you.
There aren't enough women put on platforms to share their interpretation of the Bible. And a lot of our interpretation has come from men. Hey, beautiful people. I'm Tina Morales.
And I'm Kiera Johnson.
And welcome to the Stories That Shape Us podcast, where we dive deep into the stories that have shaped who we are and who we're becoming.
We are so thrilled to have you join us. We are here to engage openly in hard conversations around faith, identity, relationships, and so much more.
Yes. If you want to peek into the journeys of healing and becoming, then we invite you to listen in on the conversation and leave transformed. Get ready for thought-provoking conversation, a whole lot of heart, and join us on this journey through the stories that shape us. We in there. Hey. Okay. Look at us. We're so ready.
I'm so prepared.
Okay, so we're back.
We are.
We'll just jump into the conversation.
Let's do it.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Like I told you, I cut my own hair.
It looks really nice.
And I feel like a new woman.
Are you doing which color this fall? Are you you chose your fall color?
I want to do highlights. I don't trust myself to do that.
Yeah, that's how light are you trying to?
How what?
How light are you trying to go?
I don't know if I should do it the way that I had it last year.
Okay.
Like I did the whole
everything.
The whole head.
Yep.
I might just do highlights this time, so it's not the whole head. But oh my gosh, I want to do it so bad.
Be pretty.
But yeah, I cut my hair. I feel
looks good. That's an accomplishment.
It is.
The layers we're gonna leave to the pros.
We're gonna leave the layers to the pros.
Yes.
I'm not gonna try to do that myself.
No.
But yeah, doing well. I'm excited about this.
I am. I've looked forward to it since
last
season.
And which was literally around the same time last year. Yeah. Good. Well, let's jump in. Today we're gonna be talking about reclaiming you. So that's where we ended last season.
Yep.
And I just thought that we should start with asking each other, what does reclaiming you actually mean? What does that mean to you?
I had written down some thoughts. I was thinking about this. And when I think about reclaiming myself, one of the first questions I thought to ask myself was like, who am I? Like, who does God say I am? And that's like the first thing. Because I think the process of reclaiming yourself has to do with, like, honestly, a lot of unlearning. Whether it's, cultural norms that you just kind of abide by, or how you grew up and you kind of just abide by. But, like, where can you adjust? How do you know what to do? You just start with, I think, a source of truth. And that's when I think of, like, okay, who does God say I am? I'm a child of God. Let's start there. And that's what it means to me.
Oh, I love that. So starting with, I need a source of truth to figure out, or to kind of like guide my thoughts around who I am in terms of reclaiming me.
Yep.
And then unlearning. I feel that. I feel that because too, I think, I really think that we don't know, and I will just speak from my experience.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that what I was believing or who I thought that I was something that I learned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I did not think that I learned it. I just thought it was truth.
Yep.
Like, who I am, how I view myself, how maybe I view others, or like how I kind of live in this world. Sorry, that's a little nap. How I live in this world wasn't something that I learned. I just thought that it was.
Yep.
I think, but when I realized that it was learned, yikes.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think part of it is, I think when it was learned, I think part of it was grief. Like, I'll be so honest, like, it grieved me to realize that I learned that about myself. Because in that season of life for me, I'm going back like 9 years now, which is so crazy to think.
Wow.
But it was something that was grieving to know that I learned this about myself. Because the things that I was thinking about myself weren't that great.
Right.
But it was also like an uphill battle. It was very like, it was hard. Yeah. It was hard in terms of like how I existed in the world and what I was trying to do and why I was trying to do it. And it came from a source of pain.
Yep.
So I love the fact that you're saying like it's about unlearning, because it is like the way that we view ourselves is learned, and we can relearn and choose something different.
Yep. Even like, yeah, exactly. Even though when I think of like desires and what you want out of life, and so you want something and it doesn't work out how you intended.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to do like a deep reflection. And sometimes you go back to why you wanted it. And maybe you realize that maybe it's something I never should have wanted. Maybe that was removed from my life. Like, I'm learning so many things. Like, maybe the desires weren't in a pure place to begin with. Like, so it's like, it's a large undertaking of unlearning.
Are you comfortable sharing maybe like one of those things that you were thinking very specifically for you?
Yeah, I would say, like growing up and wanting, saying like financial freedom.
Yeah.
And what that looks like. So maybe, the white picket fence in the home and these things. And so, we sign up for mortgages and these things, right?
Yeah.
You could kind of go into like why is that the only idea of financial freedom? Like why is that the only idea of that? Why do we sign up for these things? Like, what does freedom look like?
Yeah.
In God's perspective. You know what I'm saying? And so just that simple example, like, I want financial freedom. I want to be free, I want to have someone get this mortgage, I'm going to pay it off in 15 years. It's like, man made that system. You don't have to be like a slave to it.
Yeah.
So it's like bringing that under submission. Like, okay, I need to learn that. I don't know if God intended us to have a mortgage until death. I don't think he did. We have Jubilee, you're free from your debts. I don't think he intended that. Yeah. So like, unlearning that and saying, hey, like, let's at least set the framework of what this is. Like, what is God's purpose for my life? And let me bring this in submission to what I think he would want.
Ooh.
As an example. Yeah.
What is God's purpose for my life?
Yep.
And how do I bring this into submission
of that purpose?
And specifically the idea of financial freedom.
And what that looks like. There's so many ways to get it. And so don't stress, don't get defeated, how interest rates are high, some people can't get homes. Like, don't get defeated by something man-made that isn't working out for some. So that's an example of desire that might not work out.
Yeah. How would you say, I love this.
Yeah.
How would you say that shift has been a part of like reclaiming yourself?
I would say, because when things haven't worked out in the past, like for example, we had a business close earlier this year, I think it can leave you with feelings that are not godly, like shame, guilt. Again, bringing those things under submission. You're a child of God. You don't need to feel shame. You do not need to feel guilt.
Yeah.
And I would say it's that like understanding those feelings, bringing them under submission, and then reclaiming myself by saying like, hey, maybe God removed it from my life for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am still someone who has big dreams, and I do submit them to God. I believe in his purpose for my life.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happened with the situation.
Yeah.
So that's an example of how I would think about.
I love that. I think, so what I'm hearing you say is like, reclaiming you also is about like understanding like where we put our identity.
Right.
And I know both of us are business owners.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the identity could be in the quote unquote success of the business.
1000%.
Oh goodness. And I think that is that external piece of like, well, people will say that you are whoever based off of what you do or based off of success in their eyes. And how I think there's like a redefining or reshaping of that for like, okay, if I'm going to reclaim who I am, whose perspective am I allowing to view myself through?
Right. And there's so many learned wrong perspectives, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not what I think was intended for us all the time, which is that unlearning process.
Yeah.
And reshaping those things.
It's honestly, I'm just thinking, my brain is going to so many things. This is just how my brain works. But it makes me think about whose perspective we look at ourselves, like what lens we're looking at ourselves through, and who crafted that lens.
Right.
Like whose lens is this, and how am I like putting it on to view who I am? For me, I mean, there's so many that I could think of.
Yeah.
But I even think like as I've been reading scripture, I will share, just kind of go back. I remember when I came back to my faith, right? Like I returned to church. Just hearing the narrative of like, no, like you are good. Yeah. You are loved. You are worthy. You are accepted. Not like literally just as you are.
Yeah.
And in that season of my life, I was a hot mess. I was a hot mess. Like, got a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Got a lot of like perceived joy through attention from going out to clubs, constantly hanging around people, and there's just like high energy, and it's just like, it was a fast-paced lifestyle, drinking a lot and clubbing a lot and getting attention from men. That was, like, in that season of my life, it was just like, oh, things are great.
Yeah.
I was over there thinking like, my identity is secure, right? Like I was so falsely lifted up,
right,
off of like all this other. I had a lot of money at that time. I was working for state government. I was working as a bartender and a waitress. Your girl was never lacking in money at that season of life. Okay, like that's just where I was. But then I remember like a lot of stuff that was like that year of my life where I would say like everything was like taken from me. That's kind of how I truly feel like God stripped away every distraction, or everything that I was placing my value in. Stripped it away.
And you feel that, you feel that life kind of takes a bite out of you.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes used by, I think, God to kind of bring you back. Life takes a bite out of you. And then you have to get that unlearning.
Legit.
Get back to like, who am I? What am I doing?
Right. Like it really made me question, well, if I don't have all of these things, if I'm not receiving this, then truly, who am I? Which is sad. It's so sad to think about now. But like I truly was, like I didn't know who I was. And going to church, realizing like God accepted me as I am was a completely new narrative. And I am not trying to knock the system that I was raised in, but the narrative that I received in that system was, you're loved and you're accepted and you're worthy when you clean yourself up, when you act right, when you follow this this framework of like things to like confess and ask for forgiveness, and then you do these sets of prayers, and then you're made right with God.
When in reality, there's nothing you can do.
Zero.
Nothing you can do to get away from his love, to deserve his love. Nothing. Nothing you can do to change his love for you.
It boggles my mind still.
Yeah.
It does. And it's equally as freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of it is, in terms of reclaiming who I am, again, the lens that I look at myself through is seriously going to shape that.
Yes.
So, like, I have to understand who God is.
Yes, that's why I started there.
Yeah, like, I have to understand who he is.
Even if it's like parents. And you've been living under the approval of a parent or both parents.
Yeah.
And again, you're having to detach from what they want from you and their expectations of you. Some, if they're not healthy, right? There's good expectations in line with God, fine. But if they're not, that's a pain process sometimes to kind of get out of that. Like, hey, I'm not here to please you. I can't be this for you. And having again realign to the one who matters.
Yeah. Oh, that's that. I'm like, okay, I feel like that's like a whole other conversation.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, that is rough. I think I have a question, right?
Yeah,
how do we kind of know, or how do we discern, is this a lens from God, or is this a lens coming from my parents?
Yeah. I really think it's the word.
Yeah.
The word, doing relationship with God, praying for wisdom and a discerning spirit.
Yeah.
That's the one source of my truth, as I've gotten, as you know, we're doing the 1 year, getting deep in the word. Oh my gosh, it's life-changing.
It's so good.
Yes.
So good.
And I'm now starting Proverbs, which has always been my favorite, but now I just have more context after going through the story of David and now Solomon, and just, that is how I want the word to be my source of truth. Yeah. I want to pray for a discerning spirit. And I think that's one of the only ways you know.
Yeah. So going through the word.
I would say feeling, but feelings can be tricky.
Woo!
Some things can be good or bad, but like, who made the good or bad? Like, we did. So that can be a little subjective. So that's why I say the truth. I don't even want to use the word good or bad. I want to use God and not God.
Yeah. It's okay. Oh gosh, this is like my brain goes into so many directions. So using the word of God, this is one of the things I remember going through reading the Bible. Mm-hmm. I think that there's something really powerful about different people reading the Bible, because I truly believe that our lived experience influences our interpretation of the word.
Yep.
And I think in a way the Holy Spirit like uses that in a way that could actually benefit us, like our interpretation.
Yep.
And then as in another viewpoint, I think that our interpretation can, or our lived experience can maybe warp it. Warp the word in a sense.
Yep.
Right? So I'm always like,
you can,
challenging even like what immediately pops out to me, and then questioning like, okay, is this because this aligns with what I already believe and what I already think?
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like,
and maybe you want to pray. I'm not always good about this, but like pray before you read too. Yeah. And say, God, what open my mind and heart so that I receive from this what you want. And then that's where fellowship comes in. Yeah. Like you said, different perspectives, certain leaders in Christ, you might hear a sermon and give you a different perspective.
Yes.
No, I agree. Yeah. Our own perspective can definitely work. We can kind of take stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
It said this, so you don't want that. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
But yeah, no, I agree.
It's so fun, because I remember I was a part of a women's speaker weekend, And the women were talking about how, like, there aren't enough women put on platforms to share their interpretation of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our interpretation has come from men.
Very true.
And how that could even influence, like, the richness of what the word is telling us.
Yep.
Right? Because we're only getting one perspective.
One perspective, yeah.
And so getting perspective from men and women, getting perspective from people from different racial and ethnic backgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that all shapes and changes. But I also think that's the way that God literally uses his people as a whole to get his word out.
Yeah,
to get
one
his
body.
word out.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I just think it's fascinating of, like, really digging through the word with so many different perspectives. How am I hearing this perspective? Is it through a man's voice? Is it through a woman's voice? What's being highlighted, or which person in this story is being highlighted, right? Because there's multiple people in the story.
There are, yes.
So whose perspective is being shown here?
Right.
They had us do an exercise, which I thought was fascinating, of going through the story of, oh crap, I can't remember which story it was. Going through a story where there was like 3 different people in the story in scripture, and say, tell this story based off of this person's perspective that's in the story. Then tell it based off of this person's perspective in the story.
Yep.
And it's crazy how, like, not that the story necessarily changes, but that it just enhances and it, like, becomes fuller. Hey, real quick. Are you sick and tired of getting into the same fights with your partner over and over again? Are you sick of feeling misunderstood and disconnected? If so, I get it, which is why I created an ebook just for you. In Crushing Conflict, you're going to get a guide about how to get out of the chaos. You're going to learn why you keep getting stuck in the same cycle over and over again. You're going to learn how to get unstuck with several practical tools. And you're going to learn how you can create lasting change in your relationship. If that's you, I invite you to click the link in the description below and grab your copy today. I hope that blesses you.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and I, even in, like, in our own lives, how I feel like, okay, when I tell a story of what's going on with me and my husband, it's just my perspective, right? And so it's just it's a whole nother perspective, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if he were to tell this story, you're hearing another aspect of it.
Right.
And so how we could even do that with scripture, of being like, okay, how do I place myself in the shoes of every single person in this story that I'm reading?
Right. And I don't always do that. Yeah.
But all of us,
the person, I put myself in the shoes of who I like in the story. Or who I'm going through something similar as, or absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's obviously what we all do.
Right.
But I even think that's a part of, how do we reclaim who we are? I really think there's a part of it where, one, we can't just look at the parts of our story where we are the quote-unquote protagonist.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Right?
I like how you brought it there. I like how I'm like, the word truth, you're like, okay, and like, how do we understand this? I'm like, good.
No, this is just...
That's good.
I feel like reclaiming who we are means being willing to, like, step in, realize what we've been taught about ourselves, unlearn that, relearn ourselves, where we're not just the protagonist. Like, where have we been the what's the other word? The perpetrator, or like the
antagonist, or
the bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where have we been the good guy?
Yep.
Where have we been the victim? Where have we been the survivor? Like, really looking at all parts of us. I truly feel like that's how we reclaim ourselves, because we start to become so well-rounded, so fully aware. And when we look at it from the perspective of God's view, he doesn't just see the quote-unquote good parts of us.
Oh, no.
He sees all of
it.
us. And I feel like the more that we allow ourselves to see all of who we are, we have a greater understanding of who God is.
Mm-hmm.
He created all of this. Good, bad, ugly, in between. And I just feel like that's a huge part of like, how do I stand boldly and confidently in who I am if I ignore parts of me that I don't like?
Right.
Like that for me was a big part of reclaiming who I was.
It's powerful. And can you do that process and still love yourself? Girl. Can you do that, be truthful, reflect holistically, and still love yourself?
I don't think we can love ourselves without doing that. Right. Like, truly. Because I don't think that we can, I don't think we're actually loving people when we don't look at all sides of them.
Girl, how about relationships?
Yeah. Because that's what God is. That's what God does. He's love. He's all-knowing.
Right. Right.
Girl.
That's a whole thing. No, that's a powerful framework. Seeing all parts of you.
Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly. And getting some truth behind that. In front of it, all around it.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's maybe who you are, you know who you are, and it could just be, you know, something bad happened. Or a life change. I mean, nothing bad happened. Maybe it was a life change.
Yeah.
And reclaiming yourself in that new phase. You know, just becoming a mom. Like,
yeah.
What does that mean for me? There's so many, constant. I don't think you stop really reclaiming yourself. Because life is so dynamic. It's not a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Like you have major transformational moments like yours 9 months ago. You have life transitions. You have events. But
that's true, right?
I think
like
you have a source, like the source is what I always try and get back to.
Yeah.
The anchor.
Right. Because the source influences what that journey looks like.
Right. And if your source is wrong, if your anchor is wrong, and then you have to do a lot more reclaiming, it's going to be real painful. But if you have that source at the anchor point, I think that's the beginning.
Yeah. Who's the source? That you are essentially like.
Or what? You can throw yourself into your career, you know. You know, your education, you know, maybe you want all these degrees or.
Yeah. Oh, that's
a faulty source.
Right. What source is stable and consistent and secure no matter what the changes are?
I can only think of one.
Right. Right.
I can only think of one.
Oh, that's good. So reclaiming that word, I almost like want to look up the definition.
Yeah.
Can you look it up? Like, what is it? I love definitions. Define it for me.
Reclaiming. Definition. Retrieve or recover something previously lost, given, or paid.
Ooh.
Obtain the return of. Retrieve or recover.
Retrieve or recover something that has been
previously lost, given, or paid.
Previously lost, given, or paid.
Or paid, yep.
So when we say reclaiming you?
I think Christ coming.
Oh,
reclaiming all of us. Mankind, past, present, and future.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Recover. Oh,
something
from what?
Lost, given, or paid.
Oh, man. My brain goes to recover from, like, fill in the blank.
Right.
What is the Lord recovering you from? Like, how is he retrieving you? What is he retrieving you from? Where are you lost? And for me, like I would say I was lost in just like, I think of the prodigal son.
Oh,
I feel like there are seasons of my life where I've been both.
the son that stayed and the son.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I think of the prodigal son, right? Like where the one that left, like that's where I was lost. Like I left and I was getting a lot of validation in like my identity and my security and like all these things externally.
Yep.
And I feel like that's where the Lord was recovering me. He was retrieving me from that lost dark space, because it was a dark space. Outside it was great.
Yeah.
Internally it was dark.
Yep.
Right. And so reclaiming myself, reclaiming you is really like what God retrieved me from. And learning more about myself and him.
Right.
Like that's where he took me from that space of darkness, took me from that space of where I was lost, and now like gave me a new lens of, no, I need you to see clearly. I need you to see clearly who you are in me. Like that's where I feel like I was retrieved from.
Yeah. Wow.
What would you say?
In mine?
Yeah.
Mine, I would say, I think I have been reclaimed from, I would even say like different idols. Like I idolize, kind of back to what I was saying earlier, like, you know, financial freedom and wealth creation, not because I even want anything material, but because I believed in this system so much and always want to win in it.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
That I give my gifts and my energy and my talents to it, hardly ever taking a second to stop and be like, well, how, God, do you want to use my gifts and my talents? I'm giving it to this and what I want out of this life. Out of something, again, we made, that man made. But God, like, I'm going to stop chasing this.
Yeah.
I still want things and I still do things because I love it. And, you know, sometimes you're just good at it and you do it. But I now have learned to submit everything. I don't worry about outcomes as much.
Ooh.
I submit it to you, God. And that's how I think.
Oh, I'm literally taking a mental note.
Yeah.
Don't worry about outcomes as much.
No, I mean, when you're doing, if you are, I think you just have to stop and ask yourself, why are you doing it?
Yeah. What's the motivation?
If you're so obsessed with the outcome. But if you're doing it truly in service, to love your neighbor, to do the things that we're called to do, you won't really care about the outcome because it's in what you're doing every day. It's in how you're serving every day. It's in how you're loving every day. Like, who made the scoreboard that you're trying to put up points on, you know? That's been my reclaiming for sure.
Ooh.
It doesn't make me less ambitious. It doesn't make me less successful. I just submit all that and I'm not worried about the outcome. I'm saying, hey, well, use my success, Lord. I don't even want all of that if it didn't bring you glory. Those last 3 years with COVID, being a business owner, you know, I've humbled my life to God in that way. And reclaimed that those idols and saying, hey, you know, I don't want that just to have it, just to win it, just to beat it. Like, what is the point of that?
Yeah.
That's been my thing.
I'm gonna call that, if I can, reclaiming you from results. An outcome.
Girl.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And it's funny. I mean, yeah. I feel like you're the most free when you're not tied to results. You're the most free. I think you're going to live more purely when you're not tied to results.
Right.
And sometimes we're like in the school system. Like you take the test, you study, take the test, get the A.
Yes.
Like there's
we're wired for it. We are so wired for like results, outcome, achievement.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Our whole society is wired for it.
And I kind of learned that from it's so funny. It's broken in some of us earlier. The result, if you're a big results person, it's broken in some of it earlier. And my husband always jokes like his was broken at Tech. He went to Georgia Tech and how hard the school was. And you have all these really smart kids who go to this school and might fail for the first time in their lives.
Yeah.
And then instead of finding those who suffer the most, are those who really have their worth, maybe from family pressure, own expectations, and their grades.
Yeah.
But he lived it up. He had a great time. He was like, you know what? I'm going to join all these organizations. I'm going to have a great time and do the best I can in my classes.
Yeah.
And like, he just does so much so much better.
Yeah.
On the entrepreneurial journey and all these things. Like, that's where that result stuff got broken in him. I always joke with him about it. But mine, I had to learn a little later.
Yeah. I will say it's like, it is, I think that's a journey. I think that's so a journey, right? Because at the end of the day, in our society, people always want to know about like what you've done, what you've accomplished.
Yeah.
What you've completed.
Yes.
Like we want to know the results.
Oh, Tina. Oh, yes.
Okay.
And let me tell you, that's another reason why, like, sometimes not only does it lack patience, but you'll bypass learning. You'll bypass learning because you're like, this ain't result. Just get me to like, no, like learning is something. Growing is something.
I feel like it's everything, but that's me going to my extremes. Me going to the extremes. It's not everything. We need results sometimes, but
yeah. But I just enjoyed growing as a person more than the result I hope to get from the growth.
Yeah.
That's how I've had the biggest, I think, reclaiming recently in my life.
That's good. Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, learning. Okay. I'm marking it because I feel like there's like so many different episodes that we can put.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, would there be, I just want to wrap up.
Yeah.
Would there be a question? Well, I'll ask two questions. You got the infamous question. Is there something I didn't ask that you wish that I had?
No. I think you providing the framework under which we submit the truth,
yeah.
What's our truth and how do we know that we're not warping the truth? I think that was beautiful. I can't think of a question, but that's a perspective I didn't think of. And I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to share?
Ooh. Is there anything? No, I mean, honestly, I can't think of it. I mean, my brain just like goes into so many different directions. But no, I'm thinking if we were to leave people with some sort of reflection question for themselves when it comes to reclaiming who they are, or maybe even like a first step, what's something maybe that you would say? And I'll think of one too.
I would say one reflection question is what or who is your identity rooted in? I think asking yourself, and when you go throughout your day and you're driven by something, can you kind of find the source for that? Start to reflect from that root.
What or who is your identity rooted in? Nice. For me, I'm trying to think. I would say when it comes to reclaiming who you are, maybe after you find that source or that root, I would say journal through everything that you automatically conclude. And then see if there's a possible different perspective. Because I think when we get more comfortable viewing things from different perspectives, I think we have a greater perspective of ourselves.
You like to get up a notch, like with that framework. Yes, that's so important.
Yeah. So those are our two takeaways from this.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. We would love to hear your thoughts.
Yes. Let us know.
Yeah. Let us know if you reflect. Let us know, in the comments, like what thoughts came up for you as we were talking. What maybe you need to reclaim yourself from.
Right.
And yeah, that's it.
That's it. Number uno.